So if you go to Hearthstone's Twitter page and you scroll down a little bit, oh, what's this? Their most recent post. Changes coming next week for Evocation and Solarian Prime. Let's take a closer look. We'll be making the following balance changes in a patch to be released towards the end of next week. Evocation going from 1 to 2 mana. Huge. And then Astromancer Solarian Prime going from 7 to 9. A little less thrilled about this one, and I'll get into why in a second, but I do think that nerfing it by just 1 mana would have sufficed. So let's jump into this real quick and what it has to do with the meta. So, Evocation going from 1 mana to 2 mana obviously is going to be great for several reasons. Mainly just being the fact that it can't be randomly generated off of the Kobold Spellkins and the Wand Makers. A lot of the time, what happened was you'd play against 2, 3, sometimes up into about 6 evocations. I have had a couple of games where I've had to play against 6 separate evocations, of which 2 or 3, if not more, were generated by either Wand Maker or Kobold Spellkin, because they give you specifically 1-cost cards. The nerf that I had been suggesting for a super long time was making Evocation 2 so it can't be randomly generated by those cards, and that is exactly what they did. I am 100% thrilled with this nerf. I think that it solves a lot of the problems with Mage. Obviously, it's still going to have Sorcerer's Apprentice and Chenvala and pop off turns 5 and 4 sometimes, depending on whether or not they have the coin. But I think that's fine. Mostly because of the fact that on my videos, I said multiple times, as long as they nerf either Evocation or Sorcerer's Apprentice, I would be fine. Evocation, so that way I don't have to see as many of them, or Sorcerer's Apprentice, so the combos don't happen as hard. So now, Sorcerer's Apprentice, if that gets played, Evocation at least will no longer be free. Another interesting nerf that I would have said was Evocation does the same thing. It does 1 mana, but all the cards cost 1 more. But that was doesn't matter. The point is they're nerfing it to 2 mana, which is still good. But yeah, I think that it will now cost 1 mana with Sorcerer's Apprentice, which is a little bit more clunky in terms of combos. So now you need to have 1 mana left up in order to close out your turn. Because a lot of the time people would use Evocation near the end of their turn with, say, like their last 4, maybe 5 mana at most, and play Evocation with Sorcerer's Apprentice and play a couple of cards. Now, their options will be slightly limited. Not only that, but if you play it on turn 10 as just Evocation, now if you play an 8 mana card like Deep Freeze or Power of Creation, it will now be their entire mana pool, instead of having like 1 extra mana up to maybe Ray of Frost as well to freeze a big target. Now it's just a full commitment to one of the big 8-cost spells. Overall, I genuinely like this nerf a lot. I think that this has a lot of implications. I think it's going to make the deck a decent amount weaker, but there's still going to be a lot of power that comes from Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mana Cyclone and Chenvala and the Mana Giant. Although Evocation is going to be much weaker, and you're not going to get as many, and the win rate of this deck will probably lower by, in my opinion, 1 to maybe even 2%, like entire percent. Despite that, I think that the nerf is still good. I think that the nerf is good because it still gives Mage some win conditions, and it doesn't let them just go full casino and play like 4 or more Evocations in one game, where you feel like they've randomly generated more cards than are in their entire deck. And then the next one is the Astromancer Solarian, going from 7 to 9 mana. Now, I don't think that this is a great nerf. I think that nerfing it to 8 is better, because this brings me back to Luna's Pocket Galaxy, where at 7 mana, it was bad and almost unplayable. It saw some play, obviously, and maybe it sees some play in Wild, because I don't really keep up to date with Wild, but overall in Standard, it wasn't very good. Then they buffed it by 2 mana, and made it 5. Then it became ridiculously strong, and then they nerfed it back to 7, when I feel like, at 6, it would have been a perfectly fine cost. Like, why skip 2 when you could nerf it by 1? And then if it's still a problem, in your next patch, perhaps nerf it 1 more time, and then put it to 9. I think that nerfing it to 9 is a little bit too much and will hurt the card, a class that's already getting kind of blasted with this Evocation nerf. I feel like nerfing this to become 9 cost is a bit much. I think that having that turn 7 or even, I guess, turn 8 play to save you as a get out of jail free card is sometimes needed for a Mage, because Mage does lose control of the board very easily and is more about swing turns than almost any other class in the game, with the cards they can randomly generate, and things like Puzzle Box and Areno and the Prime, and I feel like this just hurts that identity a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I think the Prime needed a nerf, but I think that nerfing it by 2 mana was a bit too much. Also, for those of you who don't know, both cards will be eligible for the full dust refund for 2 weeks after the patch goes live, so just keep that in mind. You can still test them out after the patch goes live for a week or two before you have to dust it to get your full value. But yeah, I think that at 8 mana it would have been good. And there are a couple of reasons why. One, it still slows down the card by 1, which is good, and being able to close out against a mage 1 turn sooner is, or having 1 more turn to close out games against mage can be really, really beneficial. But 2, it makes them force a choice between Power of Creation in some decks, makes them force a choice between Deep Freeze in some decks, makes them force between a choice in the Tortolan Pilgrim in some decks if you're running Highlander. And although the card is still going to be good because a 2 mana 3/2 with spell damage with a Death Rattle put any win condition in your deck, it's still going to be a good 2-drop that helps you gain some tempo on the board. I just think that it makes Mage a little bit too slow because like it has a couple of big key combo swing turns, and slowing down one of their swing turns is just a bit much in my opinion. Or at least by this much. Obviously, I think that it did need a nerf, and I think making it 8 would have been a lot better, but that's about it. And then I have one more thing to say, basically, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, so if you don't really care, you can leave. But before you leave, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It would help me out a ton. So let's check out Twitch and the 2 new series that I'm coming out with, because I'm going to come out with them soon. But little tangent, and that just has to do with Blizzard as a whole. People hate Blizzard. People love to hate Blizzard. And trust me, I've done my share of doing that as well. But this was on Twitter, and this is one of the first times I've looked at it on Twitter and not just the patch notes. And guys, you have to chill. You can't, like, the comments were flooded with things like, oh, no Hunter nerf? Good job, Blizzard. First of all, who's asking for a Hunter nerf? Hunter sucks right now, except in maybe the lowest ranks where, like, Face Hunter is good. But if you play at anything like Diamond or above, it's okay, but I don't think it's super problematic. People saying, why aren't you nerfing Overgrowth, Blizzard? Druid was just gutted with the Guardian Animals nerf, and it's significantly worse now anyway. People are saying, why not nerf Libram of Wisdom? I feel like Libram of Wisdom and Librum Paladin is like one of the most skill-intensive decks that relies not at all on RNG. I don't think that they should nerf a deck like that. I think a deck like that is healthy for the game, and it's not that expensive, so almost anyone can create it. I think it's a very healthy deck. Not to mention the fact that it just, like, its worst matchup just got nerfed, so it'll be played more. People will start to understand the deck, and then people will find out a new counter to beat Libram Paladin with, right? Like, the meta's always going to be evolving. And then other things about, like, Priest and Demon Hunter and all that. People are... just be happy with what we got, man. We got nerfs we've been asking for a super long time. We should just be happy with that. Obviously, the meta's going to constantly be evolving, and people were also complaining about the nerfs weren't fast enough. You can't nerf everything all at one time. Things need to be gradual. If they nerfed everything, Demon Hunter, Druid, Mage, whatever else was problematic not too long ago. See, it hasn't even been a month yet, and whatever else was nerfed, I already forgot that it was overpowered. You can't nerf everything at once, because then the meta will just become a complete clown fiesta, and then a whole new set of things will become problematic that people want to see nerfed immediately right after that. Whereas if you nerf it gradually, nerfing 1 or 2 classes, then bringing 1 or 2 classes back into the meta, and then decks that were already pretty good that are now getting countered and having their win rates like fluctuate a little bit but still being near the top, then those get nerfed. It just creates like a much better flow than nerfing everything, bringing it back up, nerfing everything, as opposed to like a more fluid motion, in my opinion. That's just how I've liked it. Obviously, I do think that these nerfs could have been earlier, just like everybody else, but I don't feel the need to complain about it that much. I like the fact that there is a nerf just in general. And then on top of that, let's talk about the fact that people are saying, good job, Blizzard, nerfing a deck with a less than 50% win rate. I haven't looked at this yet, but I know for a fact that they don't know what they're talking about because they're looking at bronze through gold, because that's what free Hearthstone replay does. And this is just a common misconception about statistics. Not to mention the fact that it's not a below 50% win rate deck. But let's just say that when the person looked at it, it was below 50%. right? And maybe they were looking at no minion mage being one of the problem decks, along with Highlander mage. But that wasn't the deck they were targeting with this nerf. It was more small spell mage. But boom. Okay, let's just look at this, right? Let's just say that they were talking about these two decks and that this deck was below 50%. If you go to top 1000 legend, small spell mage is the third best deck in the game. Up there with, I guess, Highlander Hunter, which I still don't think is problematic. I don't know why it's up there, and I almost never see it played, but maybe people know something I don't. And then that's the only deck that they're trying to target because they're trying to target a higher level of play because randomness affects the competitive scene more than it affects the casuals. Casuals will still play this card because it's fun to play, and more power to them. They will still play Evocation, they will still try to play no minion mage, they will still try to do a number of things and try to make cool combos because that is what makes Hearthstone fun. The fact that there is RNG. But because that nerf, it's exactly what I wanted to have happen, and it's separating the viability of the deck from like the casual players. So casual players can still have fun without it messing up the competitive scene with a ton of randomly generated things people don't know how to play around. I think that these nerfs were great, and people just love to hate on Blizzard. Trust me, I've done the exact same thing. I'm not saying that I'm better than this, but I want to try to be better. So if you agree with what I said about the Blizzard thing, feel free to let me know. Obviously, they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. And obviously, some things still need to be nerfed. Soul Demon Hunter is really the biggest thing on my list of things that should probably be nerfed. But I think they're trying their best, and I appreciate that. And I like the fact that they're giving nerfs, and they're listening to the community, and nerfing cards that needed to be nerfed. That's all I gotta say. If you guys enjoy, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said earlier, stay tuned for the new series that I'm going to be doing. There are two of them. One, free to play to Legend, which I already started, and two, a more comedy thing that I'm going to be doing, where I'm just going to try to be a little bit more scripted. Not like fully scripted, but a little bit more, and just try to be funny and talk about a couple of things that I feel like should be talked about, and I think it'll be a fun time for everyone. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.